Okay, colleagues, I think it's time for us to start. We have some 50 people connected, and it is my pleasure to be kind of the facilitator of today's global workshop. It is, first of all, a pleasure to be connected with all of you, and really grateful to all our local partners, implementing partners, institutions, friends that I have connected from all over the globe for today's exchange. A specific thank to the institutions that have co-organized these workshops together with us. You can see their logos on the screens, from DESA to UCLG, passing from the regional commissions for the ECE region, Africa, Asia Pacific, and ESCWA, of course. Today's workshop is somehow different, or at least we will try to have it a bit different, in the sense that it has been a while since a global exchange from many different regions has happened, with the pure objective of animating a very technical discussion. Today's discussion is purely technical. The focal points that you will see in the agenda are the technical focal points at city level, including consultants, but also UN colleagues that are involved in the nitty-gritty of the development of the VLR itself. And what we would like to have today is that kind of exchange on the difficulties, but also the opportunities and the practices of developing the VLR itself. Many and the majority of the cases that you will see, that you will hear today, are directly supported by the implementing partners that are organizing this global workshop. So we kind of know what's cooking, but we really would like to foster that kind of peer exchanging between partners. For today's session, we have three different sessions. For today's event, we have three different sessions. A first session that looks into the data component of VLRs, a second session that looks into stakeholders engagement, and a third one that looks into strategic action, what comes after the voluntary local review. Each session is structured in the same way. A first keynote that will provide overall key messages and a bit of a setting the scene, the practices presented by the local partners, and finally a respondent with the kind of objective of wrapping up what has been discussed and give us the input for the open discussion. We are going to have two moderators for the Riccardo Moroso from our regional office in Asia Pacific, who will moderate the data track. Najwa from our regional office in Arab countries will moderate the second track, and I will take care of the last session on strategic action and next steps. A bit of housekeeping rule, without getting too much into key messages that I will leave to our keynote speakers, is that please keep your mics muted if you are not speaking, but this is an open and safe space. So, and again, the objective is to be noisy, to exchange, and so on. So feel free to intervene, feel free to participate in the discussion. The meeting is recorded. We unfortunately don't have interpretation, so I hope that everyone feels comfortable with English, but we can eventually support in the background as needed. Each speaker is being provided with 5 minutes, and we kindly keep the time, because again, the objective of today is the discussion rather than the presentation. The presentations are the basis for what comes next. I will, for my own session, and I think that Riccardo and Najwa will do the same, I'm going to have my phone here with an alarm set at 5 minutes. When it goes off, please start wrapping up your intervention if you hear that sound. It would be great if everyone could introduce himself or herself in the chat so that we know more or less who's taking part to the session. We have many registered participants, but it's great actually if we get to know each other and if you can introduce yourself in the chat. I think I have. This is not my job, but the colleagues have prepared these bullet points for me. So I'm looking at my colleagues if there is something that I am missing. Please do let us know. If you have any inputs, any ideas and reflection while speakers are still present, feel free to use the chat that I hope we will be able to use as much as possible. Colleagues will monitor and moderators will have double role of the open discussion and animating the chat as well. So I honestly don't think that I should be going in more than this. My role ends here, and I will pass the floor and open the discussion already to the first moderators of today's first session on data. Riccardo Maroso, project manager from UN Habitat's regional office in Asia Pacific. Riccardo, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Martino. I hope you can hear me well, and pleasure to be here with all of you. As anticipated, we will start this global workshop on the voluntary local review with a data track focus. As we all know, if we are involved in the SDG localization processes, the data track is one of the vital steps in the development of a voluntary local review and one of the most challenging, right? And it goes from an initial steps on stock taking and selection of indicators that are relevant to the local government, the VLR focus on, the data availability and the related gap analysis, but also and most of all on the alignment between international agendas and framework like the Sustainable Development Goals and the Global Urban Monitoring Framework, for example, with the national and subnational data set, right, and plans and resources. So here in this encounter between global and local, we also see how the VLRs can take different shapes and different focuses, and I think is one of the richness of these processes that we will see today here with guests from different regions. Today we will have speakers from different regions, different organizations, and different sectors. So we hope that this can really be useful for everyone to learn examples and get inputs from others and then participate in the open discussions. Yeah, so I will give the word to the different speakers now in order, and at the end there will be around 20-25 minutes for open discussion, and please feel free to contribute. I will open for the floor to discuss and share, and I hope you will be active and engaged, yeah, both to ask to the speakers questions or to bring your own experience. So we can start now the first session. I will give the word for the keynote speech to a representative from UNESCAP, which is one of the leading agencies in the Asia Pacific for the SDG localization process, but also playing a key role on the voluntary national reviews. And I pass the word now to Ms. Omar Siddiq, from the head of unit of Sustainable Urban Development from UNESCAP. Omar, I'll give the words to you. You have 5 minutes, and I count you will respect this time. But thanks, Omar, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Riccardo, Martino, colleagues. It's really a privilege to be part of this technical exchange and give some opening remarks from ESCAP's perspective, particularly as data issues we all know are so critical, because if we don't highlight the granularity of how local and regional governments are performing against the SDGs, we really can't meet those targets by 2030. There's a big risk, I think, that we all know that if we continue to report on each of the 17 goals based on national averages, that there will be really a chance also to not see the disparities within countries. And for those of us that work on these local and regional policies, we know that sometimes the disparities within countries can even be greater when comparing countries across each other. So this is a really important part of the VLRs, the measurement agenda, the subnational statistics agenda. As part of this technical exchange, I was given kind of 4 sets of questions by the organizers to respond to. So I'll go through each of those. And the first set of questions was, from our experience, and we've supported about over a dozen VLRs now in the Asia Pacific region. What methodology did we use to select the indicators? Which frameworks of indicators were consulted? Was the alignment between existing local, national, and global indicators possible? So very big questions. So the purpose was, in the case of ESCAP support to VLRs, is often to provide a baseline data for the reports, and these were informed by the global indicators. So the methodological framework that we usually utilize to select the indicators was informed by social and economic secondary data sources. Secondary data sources we usually extract through desk review of official reports, for example, data portals at municipal, national, and local level, census reports, household income surveys, ministerial reports, and academic literature. At times, we also rely on key informant interviews to be carried out with government ministries, officials, and experts. We also use the World Council on City indicators, and of course, define indicators also with reference to the UMF, the Urban Monitoring Framework. The metadata repository available on the UNDESA site is often consulted when we're calculating the target and selecting variables. And I have to say that countries are very at different starting points. Like, so for example, in Indonesia, they have an entire institutional mandated framework for subnational government to report on the SDGs. And they actually have a national set of proxies that are tailored from the global indicators that we have to actually choose from. And that every local government in Indonesia also has to submit annual reports on the implementation of the SDGs. A side effect of that is often when we come with the VLR, they see this as a kind of duplication of efforts and, kind of donor-funded things. So we have to also make the case on how that VLR differs from the mandated plans. One of the challenges that we face is we often try to have data requested and received is often restricted to the greater urban area, and where possible, it's classified by different wards within the administrative boundary. So in that event, where city level data is difficult to obtain, we generally use national, state, or even urban level data to indicate a gap in the current records or the proxy indicator. So alignment between national and local variables where possible in limited cases, and also the comparison between different timescales was a big limitation for the work in the VLRs. As part of this, I also tried to bring out 6 key desired indicator attributes that we look for when setting VLR data. First one is availability. Many commentators of SDG localization express concern regarding the availability and accessibility of local scale data. So while ideally relevant data will be easily accessible, for example, already collecting from the city or publicly available, there's often data gaps that need to be filled. Accuracy is another key consideration for the indicator attribute so that it correctly reflects urban realities. Third is the frequency of collection. So this is really important because time series data is very useful. Moving from static measures to providing this time series data offers far more detailed insights into the effectiveness of policy interventions and provides a picture of trends in specific areas. So usually for longitudinal data, you need at least 3 data points to be able to establish a trend and then also do possible forecasting. So time series data is also critical for gap analysis projections. Historical trends in target areas might reveal that current action will likely deliver on the target without further intervention necessary as well. Projections, we find, also assist backcasting of the targets and the creation of milestones. But with this time series data, not all national and local governments have done this well. One thing to note also that while the frequency of data collection is important in the sense of time series, not all indicators require this kind of hyper-frequent collection. For example, shared proportion of green space, it's assumed that this will not change rapidly on year, and so yearly reporting may not be necessary. Fourth area is around ability to be disaggregated spatially by area, but also sociodemographically by age, sex, income, race, ability. So that helps with ensuring no social group is left behind in the analysis. A number of the official SDG indicators already require data to be disaggregated, such as 1.11 on no poverty. It's very important also to look at international as well as local lines in terms of poverty, to look at employment status and geographical location, urban and rural. Fifth key area we find is on spatial boundaries. So there's a variety of definitions that what constitutes a statistical urban area or a city, which poses a big challenge for the statistical comparisons. So data can be reported for administrative or statistical areas that don't necessarily map neatly onto the spatial boundary of an area. In addition, different data sources can draw different statistical boundaries for the same geographic area. So it's useful to note that that what exact spatial definition has been used by the data creator when going through this. And then finally, the source of data is really important, refers to both the creator, for example, Bureau of Statistics, as well as the format, for example, a survey. So usually we use a mix of quantitative and qualitative data, and thus the source and format of the data is really useful to note. Second question from the Secretariat was, what were the main... Yep.
Sorry,
Am I already over time?
Yeah.
All right, I'll go quickly over the next ones. The main primary, secondary sources of data identified was disaggregated and up-to-date data available. How did you address these gaps? The key issue is the challenge was consolidating data sources from different timelines, levels, periods, and different sources. However, where possible, the source documents would have an appendix of raw data, which was reviewed to select data and input as variables for the project. So when calculating the targets, one lesson learned is we need to have consideration placed on the variables reflected that they reflect the respective time frame during case classification. So that 2017 data, for example, is analyzed for 2017. Third question, who were the partners, institutions, and departments at both local and national levels that were most involved in supporting data collection? Any challenges? City councils, national statistical offices, line ministries, ministries of land, GIS departments for the spatial data were some of our main partners. One political issue we often find is use of non-official statistics in these reports. So citizen-generated data being included in the report. Many local governments are hesitant to put this, but some are willing to put it, for example, in boxes in the report. Fourth and final question, what were the main challenges that arose in data for the VLR and what solutions did you put in place to address them? The main challenge we found was inaccessibility to the raw data, as well as timely approval from the different departments within the government that we requested. To overcome this challenge, we used published sources of data within the respective departments. Where there was no direct information available through instrumental measures, proxy records of data available within the census or respective ministries, annual reports or city reports were used. International databases or academic sources, where methods were credible, we used to fill the gap. So I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for your attention. This was, I know, a lot of information, and happy to provide additional feedback. Over.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks, Sommer. Appreciate it. I think it was indeed a dense intervention, but with really good inputs. And yeah, just important to highlight a point, that from the Economic and Social Commission is really important, and is the comparison between different countries, right? And Omar highlighted some of the challenges in comparing, and also the particularities of the processes in each country, but sometimes even within the same local scales focus. So we will let's say build on this first intervention now, bringing experience from different countries, and we will start from Thailand, so remaining in the Asia Pacific, from the city of Udon Thani. We have Miss Sirawarang Hompiron, the secretary to the mayor of Udon municipality that is currently developing a voluntary local review, the second one in Thailand. So Kunpun, over to you. And Vanessa, yes, thanks. Please share the slides. Thank you very much. 5 minutes, I will keep the time. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Siliwarang Hompirom, Secretary of the Mayor of Udon Thani City Municipality. Today we will talk about our city background. Can the file, can it come up? Just a moment.
Yeah,
okay.
Vanessa, we cannot see.
Can you see that?
Can you see the screen right now?
Yes.
You can see that. Okay, shall we start? Okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
Our city background is located in the northeastern region of Thailand, 50 kilometers from Thai and Lao border. Our population updated in January 2024 is 115,218 people. Our area is 47.70 square kilometers. Our city is selected as the pilot city based on consultation NESDC, responsible for SDG monitoring at the national level in 2022. Cooperation between UN Thailand and 76 governors in 2022, and its major environment to produce a VLR minimum data availability, capacities to promote public participation, and being an intermediate city. Next page. Yes, our indicator selection. Initial data review from national and multiple reports. Indicator selection exercise in the VLR training workshop on 16th to 17th October 2023. There are 88 participants, which is municipal staff and representatives from other agencies. UMF indicator selection was based on city development plan alignment, data availability, balance between UMF domains and global relevance. Next page, please. Data resources. We have data collection by municipality, national data such as report on social situation, provincial development index, National Statistical Office, and other agencies. Provincial data such as traffic fatalities, community surveys such as unpaid time spent on domestic and care work, satisfaction to e-governance tools. Next page. Challenges. Our challenges is collected data are similar to SDG and UMF, can be used as proxies, and a lot of data are collected at provincial level. Next page, please. That's all for our city. Any questions?
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Kunbun. Thank you very much for sharing these messages. And so it's a pleasure to have here Udon Thani. Indeed, through the support of UNHABITAT and with the guidance also of UNESCAP, the city is in developing a voluntary local review. And we saw, and perhaps we will have the chance to discuss later on also the role of the urban monitoring framework in this country. As one of the key points of the methodology adopted at the city. Also interesting to note the large amount of data at the national and provincial level, collected is in line with the comment also that Omar made earlier, and the need to create proxies to the SDGs or official indicators. Okay, so we will now move on to the next presenter in the interest of time, this time from Tunisia, representing the city of Hay Noor. We have Ms. Aida Robana, the head of the UNHabitat country office, on behalf of the Secretary General of Hay Noor. So Ms. Aida, if you're ready, please.
Good evening. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is Aida from Tunisia. I don't know if can I see my PowerPoint? Or should I share it myself?
We should have them coming up.
Okay.
I think, I'm not sure. Colleagues, can you confirm, or shall Aida check it's in her own screen? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much. So I am presenting on behalf of Mr. Hamdi, the Secretary General of the Municipality of Hay Noor. Hay Noor is, next please, is one of the 350 municipalities in Tunisia. We have 24 governorates, 350 municipalities. It is in one of the interior regions of the country, around 90,000 population, and it is part of the governorate of Kasserine, very close to the border with Algeria. And it's one of the less urbanized regions in Tunisia with a very big density. Next. We have used the participatory methodology with the Office of the UN Habitat, beginning with the SDG City Initiative back in 2022 and an SDG certification. The municipality of Hay Noor has a silver certification on SDGs. We have mobilized the municipality and all the actors at the local level, but also at the regional and the national level, as well as the civil society. And then we have begun the collection of data on the summer of 22 with using 4 modalities: databases, public documents and public studies, interviews and focus groups, and also surveys done with several institutions on the field. After that, the team of experts has begun the analysis, but having back and forth a discussion with the municipality and with all the regional direction of the different ministries. And then we are now in the last phase, of course, of having the document printed and shared with all the counterparts. Next, please. The process for the collection and selection of the indicators mobilized for the VLRs was done at the local, regional, supranational, and national level. We have had part of one of the problem, and you have mentioned in the beginning the challenges. The census, the last census in Tunisia was in 2014, and we are now preparing the new census for 2024. So some of the indicators that was collected was a little bit old, and the team has managed to have in 2022 some very interesting indicators based also on the urban monitoring framework, and also sources of the recent local indicators that has been collected was done with field surveys, with the GIS calculation on sectors, and with the city itself. Next. Priorities that was expressed by the city stakeholders is the 6 ones that you see: urban informality, utilities, environmental conditions, urban transport, the quality of public space, and poverty, and the development of a diversified urban economy that is missing. And all these priorities have guided the discussion from the municipality side with the experts of the UN Habitat, but also with all the stakeholders at the local, at the regional, and the national level. Next, please. We have done a detailed review of SDG 11, which was the first one at the local level for the 350 municipalities. There is no data working or having a collection on the SDG 11. Next. And we have particularly discussed target 11.1 and 11.2, trying to immediately also develop with the municipality ideas of proposed projects from there, and coming from the challenges that has been, of course, detected and collected by the expert of UN Habitat. Can we have the next one, please? So this target 11.1, 11.3, 11.5, all this information has been possible to detect proposed project in order to develop solutions for the SDG 11. Next one, target 11.6 also. Next. I will not go on the proposed project because the team is online, and if you have any question, we can of course answer. Can I have the next one, please? And these are the SDGs that we have also collected data. This wasn't also possible at the local level before, so it was a really very good discussion with the municipality. SDG 1, 2, 3, 4. Next slide. 5, 8, 13. And 16, we have had also a change during the discussion with the municipality, as we have had a change in 2023 of the municipal council that has been dissolved in March 2023. And we have now with us, of course, the Secretary General of the municipality, and we have been continuing the discussion. So this was not a real challenge, but this is worth to mention. Thank you. Over to you, Martino, and the team.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Aida. I think it's a great example of an actually quite long engagement in the process, starting from another program, that is SDG cities, and then focusing within more on the SDG localization component. It's nice to see that all comes together, right? To understand locally the SDGs and then measure the progress and the process at the city level. I think this is a great example of how a voluntary local review does not only serve as a repository of data to assess the progress on the SDGs of the city in a specific moment, right? But it can also be a really valuable tool to inform the city development plans or pipelines of projects that the cities might want to prioritize, address, include in the next city development plan, or in any shape that can come. Yeah. So this was a really interesting intervention. As Ms. Aida mentioned, if there are further questions, you can share them in the chat, or also contacts can be shared after the session. So thank you very much, and thanks for the city representatives also to join together with the UN Habitat colleagues. Okay, then we will move now to the last intervention before the open discussion. So if anyone wants to share their own experience or their perspective, please get ready. In about 5 minutes, we will give the opportunity to everyone. But let's go first with Ms. Mia Albibegovic, Associate Professor, Professional Officer in the Economics and Affairs, the Secretary of the UN Economic Commission for Europe, Forums of Mayor. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Riccardo. Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everybody. As Secretary to the Forum of Mayors at UNECE, I'm very honored to address this esteemed panel and audience on this critical topic, that's the development of voluntary local reviews, and also the challenges and solutions encountered in the data track specifically. So firstly, I would like to extend my gratitude to the representatives from the pilot cities that are here with us today, those that presented Udon Thani, Thailand, and Hayonura, Tunisia, for sharing also their insights and experiences. I really think that your contributions also shed light on the complexities and of localizing and the importance of localizing the Sustainable Development Goals through the local voluntary local reviews. So we saw that the questions posed to the panel encompass the essence of the VLR development. So they're focused on the methodologies for indicator selection, data collection, stakeholder engagement, and also the challenges that are faced along the way. So we'll now provide like a summary and a commentary on these aspects, drawing also on my experience, on the UNECE experience, and providing information. So starting from the indicator selection methodology and data collection, we saw that, and we know that selecting indicators for VLRs requires really careful consideration of local priorities. So this is really important, the most important thing, and of course also of the existing frameworks and data availability. So it's really encouraging to have seen that cities are consulting various frameworks, engaging with local, national, and global indicators. But however, as we know, challenges persist regarding data availability, disaggregation, and also the alignment with SDG targets and indicators. And that's why we need proxy data in this sense. UNECE emphasizes the importance of innovative solutions. And for example, in our regional guidelines for the voluntary local reviews development, we highlight the need for really the imaginative use of available data sets, as you already heard also from other panelists, and also of the establishment of data collection protocols, stakeholder engagement, and I would add also citizen generated data to really address the data gaps we have. The guidelines also stress the importance of establishing platforms to ensure continuous data collection also beyond the voluntary local reviews, so to inform, of course, future monitoring and analysis. For what concerns more specifically to partnerships, we know they are crucial, but I would like to add also the fact that coordination is crucial. So we know that collaboration with other organizations, institutions, different levels of government foster a conducive environment for data collection, ensuring really a holistic approach to VLR development. But we also have to ensure to enhance coordination between these different institutions and partners, and to have an effective data collection. It's essential, for example, to establish clear communication channels, protocols among the partners, regular meetings, workshops, and also signing, for example, dedicated staff to manage and oversee data collection efforts and to ensure really accountability. So in general, summarizing the challenges encountered in the data track of the VLR development underscore really the need for a collaborative, innovative, context-specific approach, and solutions may involve enhancing data quality through improved methodology, but also capacity building for data collection and analysis, leveraging technology also for data collection and management, as I already said, also strengthening partnerships and coordination mechanisms, and advocating for increased investment in the data infrastructure. So to conclude, I would like to say that at UNECE, we are fully committed to supporting the VLR development. We have different tools. So, for example, the regional guidelines for the development of VLRs, but also we also developed our e-learning course that's open and available for everybody freely. And of course, we are committed to the SDG localization efforts through also other initiatives, such as the development of KPIs, key performance indicators for smart sustainable cities. At UNECE, we really want to give cities a voice through also the Forum of Mayors. That's an established UN body where mayors can share their best practices. And I'm inviting you and to participate, to attend the Forum of Mayors. And I really look forward to welcoming you in Geneva in October. And really to conclude, we know that the journey towards crafting VLRs is multifaceted. It requires collaboration, innovation, and really dedication. And I think really that together with our collective experience, we can drive positive changes and build resilient, more sustainable, inclusive communities for future generations. So I really thank you for giving me the opportunity for being here with you today. And again, I look forward to welcoming you in Geneva in October. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mia, for your great summary. I think indeed all the interventions that have been shared highlight the importance of using the VLR as a process to strengthen the data environment at the local level, not only for the purpose of the VLR, but also for any work that the local governments or local institution would want to do in the future, and they would like to inform. I think this is something that UNHABITAT as an international organization and many partners always do, is to recognize, first of all, the amount of work, right, that local government and partners already do, before any SDG localization process starts. So I think it's always important to look at, despite the challenges that have been listed, with a positive approach, recognizing the work that cities already do greatly to address sustainability processes and challenges, and then support them to align them to the SDGs and align to the global dialogue. I would like to now open the floor. We have about 15 minutes, if I'm not wrong. Maybe the main team can let me know, but we have 15 minutes for an open discussion where we would like to hear from other contexts, other cities, regions, or partners about their own experiences, specific on data track, right? So touching on the elements that were already mentioned, but also new ones, right? Regarding data availability, methodologies that are used, frameworks that perhaps goes beyond SDGs and the Global Urban Monitoring Framework and other aspects. So I have a bit of a list of names in my background papers in case I have to call someone out, but I hope that there will be someone interested to volunteer. You can raise your hand here in Teams in the bar above, and I will give you the floor. About 15 minutes. Please come forward to share your experience or perspective, or if you want to address any of the speakers with a question or a comment, this is also welcome. Go, Martino, an easy one.
No, look. We have colleagues from Palestine. Fine, please.
Okay, yes, please. Marwan, yes, I cannot see the full name. Yeah, please, over to you. If you want to introduce yourself for everyone, information would be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. This is Marwan Durzi. I'm the VLR development expert supporting the city of Ramallah in Palestine. In fact, I have a question, though I also share the same experience with my colleagues that we also don't have specific data at the local level, but we do have data at the governorate or regional level, around 20 of those. which is generated by the Central Bureau of Statistics, which is the primarily official body responsible over monitoring data. Which leads me to the general question, so to speak. Did any of the colleagues face the issue of like transferring or transforming qualitative data through different qualitative tools into quantitative ones? This could be a little bit challenging, as I'm currently designing few of those with various stakeholders. But like indicators such as for one, the proportion of youth and adults with information and communication skills, this could be haunting exercise, though like quick survey with the focus group could project that, but I'm not so sure if this is going to be reflective to the indicator itself, taking into consideration the strict guidelines coming from the national data body, the Central Bureau of Statistics, that we should abide by the definition of the indicator and the metadata procedures. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I think it's an issue that many face, and I think also was mentioned before in some of the presentation, right? In using quantitative and not official data and transform qualitative data and transform them into quantitative data. Yeah, maybe is there someone that wants to bring their own experience and provide an example? Yes, please, Sukaina.
Yes, thank you, Ricardo, for giving me the floor, and I'll try to be very short. It's not actually a question nor directly answering Marwan, but I just wanted to bring to the table, because I haven't heard it through the interventions, the importance of the urban observatories and the existence of urban observatories and how the data collect really is beneficial to the development of the VLR. UNESCWA, I'm sorry, I did not introduce myself. I'm the lead of the Sustainable Urban Development Portfolio at UNESCWA, which is the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia. Together with the UN Habitat, we've basically supported both Amman in Jordan and Agadir in Morocco in developing the pioneering VLRs in the Arab region. And there were two different, one major difference between those, among many others, was the existence of the Amman Urban Observatory, which really helped a lot in the data collection, analysis, and validation process. In Agadir, that was not present, and this constituted a challenge. So what I wanted to highlight is basically, given the data challenges we face, the presence of urban observatories is very important. And to answer Marwan, there are many proxies that we were able to use basically to replace the data that corresponded to the indicators capturing the targets of the SDGs. That said, when we go to the qualitative indicators, the stakeholders engagement process was key, and in the coming session, we're going to focus on the stakeholders engagement process and centrality to VLRs. The capturing the insights of relevant stakeholders was really key in responding to the data gaps within the VLR. So just wanted to say this. I don't want to take more time from the discussion, and over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. I think it's important to know the role of urban observatory, where they are available as a guiding actor or support actor in both analyzing and selecting proxies where possible, but also to reiterate the importance of the contribution of external actors. Perhaps is there someone else that would like to come in and to align with the comments? Yeah, Walid, please, over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. If you can introduce yourself, that would be great.
I'm Walid Belhajali. I'm the expert for UN Habitat Tunisia, and I was working in the VLR of Hay Noor. Apologize for my English. I don't know if I can speak in French or not. No.
It would be better English, and it sounds really good, by the way. So.
Okay. Facing this problem of data, which is data which is provided in our countries in regional and national level sometimes are not relevant at local level, and we can see this in when we discuss with local stakeholders, and we noticed that for some data this data is not relevant at local level. I can give an example of the data on security on public spaces. When we looked at this data at the regional level, we saw that 80% of women feel safe in public spaces. This is the data, official data, which is measured by survey. When we come at Hay Noor and discussed with women's and with stakeholders, we saw that 100% of women don't feel secure on public spaces. It's very different at this local level, because Hay Noor is specifically a territory where there is a lot of violence in public spaces, and it was not acceptable for us to present this data in the VLR and to say that at 80% of women feel secure at public spaces. Then what we did is to present the official data at regional level, and say that specifically at Hay Noor there is a problem of security, and this data is not relevant at Hay Noor. And to give the example of the testimonials of women which were in the reunions and in the meetings, and this, because when we say it 80% feel insecurity, we will not give we will not have responses for this problem at Hay Noor. It's a real problem at Hay Noor. Then I suggest that we compense the lack of data at the local level by discussing with the population and with the local stakeholders to nuancer, pour nuancer, je ne sais pas comment le dire en anglais, pour nuancer the regional and national information. That's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Walid. I think is quite a striking difference between the regional level data and the local level data. A really good example on a really important topic, and I think is really also connected with the opening of Omar from UNESCAP, right? And the fact that often national averages are presented as the data, while the reality at the local level within the same countries can be extremely different, right? And therefore these higher level data are not representative. So I think one of the answers to the initial question, right, is still the importance of addressing and including the results of local level data in the VLRs, perhaps if they're not official and not necessarily approved, as Omar was suggesting, right, they could be introduced in boxes or in other format within the VLR and within the narrative of the VLR. Aida, please.
Yes, thank you. A little bit piggyback on what Walid was saying in a very good English, I must say. I would like to underline the qualitative also data and the testimony of the citizens themselves. And I think that using the COBO tool that we have done through the collection of data in the summer of July 2022 with the students and with the population of Hay Noor, it was really very important, and we need to have a way to collect this qualitative data, because it will for sure inform us better on the quantitative when it is missed. The indicators also, as I have mentioned, for Tunisia, the census was not there yet, and all the information were missing. So when we had the urban monitoring framework, we decided with the municipality and with the support of Mr. Walid to really really try to do some proxies, of course, but also to rely on some of the information that he was not just sharing now, and also discussing with the municipality to confirm that these information, and with the surveys, with all the meetings that we did, were very, very important to confirm all this qualitative data. Thank you. Over.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks, Aida. Indeed, I think that the VLR needs to be understood also as an instrument to give voice, to the local realities that doesn't have necessarily to be, the official and the official position of formal data, but actually also be the opportunity to strengthen the stakeholder engagement, the community engagement in the collection of information and data as a consequence. We have still 5 minutes, so perhaps Joao, I'll give the word to you. Maybe then we can forward. Please, over to you. Maybe introduce yourself as well, and
sure.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'll be very quick. So I'm João Tavares. I'm also working in the urban team with Sukaina at UNESCWA. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much for putting together such an important, really central event today. So basically, I just wanted to react to this very interesting insights so far, especially from the local experiences, trying to bring a bit this regional perspective. From my side, what I'm usually trying to think about is how to scale up the process of VLR development in the region and hopefully around the globe. And so far, thinking about the challenges, it makes me think that we really need also a way of streamlining the process of data collection, treatment, and analysis. And I think the UMF is doing a great job, especially with quantitative data. But from the comments today, I have the feeling that also how to bring qualitative data, triangulate this data with the quantitative data is something that we can start exploring. I know that you have enough work already, but this is the other kind of standards that will be great to have. And also, I heard a lot the challenges in using citizen-generated data. So this part of citizen science, I think, is crucial as well to get this granular data. And so if we can try to together come up with this streamlined approach to data, to ensure data quality, data interoperability for citizen science, for citizen-generated data in the region, that would be amazing, because then we can really create the civic process where we have citizens providing the data, but creating also impact in policy making. So yeah, that's it, just a reaction to the conversation so far. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Joao. It's great to see this really proactive participation from this region and this country. I think, really interesting, and indeed it's important to advocate for the citizen-generated data and their role, right, in one of the key objectives of the VLRs, that is to be representative of everyone, right? The principle on the SDGs should always be referred to the leaving no one behind principle, right? Also in these processes. Maybe one last intervention for this point. Is great that I didn't have to follow any additional or push anyone. Lucia, perhaps you are the last one, so over to you.
Okay, thanks to the presenters, and I'm glad I'm part of this. We were involved in the building capacities of stakeholders on monitoring SDGs. And that brought together local government, civil society, national statistic offices, the relevant government departments, and like. And one thing that we realized was from the national statistical offices we engaged with was that they considered the data, administrative data collected by local governments and the data collected obviously by civil society and not the national statistical offices as being problematic, right? Yet, realistically, there isn't enough data around these urban indicators. When you take the example of SDG 11, those indicators, Most of them are new, and as we speak, they remain tier 2. So what we came across was here in Kenya, where the National Statistical Office was making an effort to standardize the data being collected at the local government level and the data being collected by these other actors, stakeholders, to ensure that that data is done to the level which is acceptable to enter the national statistical system. So I just wonder, in all this that you are doing, whether you have come across that type of a collaboration and willingness by the national statistical offices to do something about it, because there's a dearth of urban data. But at the same time, there are so many other stakeholders that are collecting data in one way or another, which is not entering the national statistical system. So if you rely on mostly on the data collected by the national statistical system, it means that maybe you are able to collect 50% or even less. So in this type of discussion, maybe, some kind of solution will be found, because I think it's beyond just using qualitative data or data collected by other stakeholders to put in boxes and things like that. Of course, the other fundamental issue is the linkage between the VLRs and the national VLR, the national voluntary the voluntary national reviews. To what extent, in your view, is the data that is these reports that you are doing, to what extent they're informing the national voluntary review exercises, especially for those countries that are reporting? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucia. Here you are opening really big questions that I'm not sure we can address today in full, but I think is a really important point, right? Connecting all the efforts that are done and you all are doing at the moment to collect data at the local level, sometimes qualitative, sometimes not up to a quality or a formality that can be approved by the government and be integrated at the same level of the national statistical data with a more formal reporting, right, to make them officially recognized and then potentially feed into the voluntary national review processes. Maybe we will take, if times allow, Martino, just a couple of reflection on this, if you want to touch directly at this point. Otherwise, I think that this could be one of the questions noted down by the note taker of the events and perhaps address after the event, and because it really is an important point. Okay, perhaps this really last intervention. Lusungu, over to you. Thanks.
Yes,
please introduce yourself.
Very quick. My name is Lusungu Kayani. I am working on urbanization and development at UNECA, the Economic Commission for Africa. And just a really quick point, doesn't really need a response now, but I ask localities and cities and governments present to maybe speak a bit to geospatial data. We've talked a lot about statistical data, but maybe how it is to work with the national spatial organizations and how much they are including the spatial data in their VLRs, and if they're noticing there's a gap there. I'm wondering how much that data is being addressed. I don't think I heard too much of that in the presentations, but this can possibly be addressed in the following two segments of the workshop and in the next discussion. Doesn't have to be immediately addressed now. Thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. I think indeed the spatial data do indeed play an important role. I think at least the one directly involved in the development of the VLRs knows this, and especially when UNHABITAT is involved, that coming from a background of urban planning is used now to visualize this data, and also they play an important role in the narrative of the VLR, making data much more understandable and digestible to a bigger public. If you, excuse me, Luzungo, but for the interest of time, perhaps we will note this question and we will put it as one of the key points to address maybe in the event report, or perhaps even, as you mentioned, in the next sessions. I think, for example, in the stakeholder engagement, definitely the importance of engaging agencies or government agencies or non-government agencies related to geospatial data would be really an important element. I want to close here the intervention. This is a long workshop, so we need to respect the timing allocated for the data track. I thank you, all of you, for the really active discussion. You made my life much easier. And thank you very much for Omar from UNESCAP, Ms. Siri Rang from Voluntary. Thank you very much for representing Thailand here. Ms. Aida, but of course also the representative from Hey Noor City, Tunisia, then the economic commissions from Europe. Thank you very much, Mia, as well, for your wrap up of the session. Thank you all. I give the word to Martino, perhaps, and then to go straight into the next session. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Ricardo, for your excellent moderation, and thanks a lot to those that have contributed to the discussion. I have the feeling that you should probably have a 3-hour workshop only on data, because we have opened few of these Pandora boxes, from spatial data to multi-level connection to accessibility, and probably the next step would definitely try to find common solutions to those, or at least we are at least given that this is a very UN-dominated participation, we tend to have a lot of methodologies, a lot of documents, but then the practice is somehow slightly different from what is put in the papers. We know the partners, we don't know them all, we don't know the details of the experiences, and many of these solutions actually only emerge in these kind of settings where we are able to talk to each other about the challenges, and so I would really be keen to continue this kind of discussion together with all of you. Maybe today we just open the bigger Pandora box, and then we will have to narrow it down into this kind of same setting, very technical exchange, just to one of each of the tracks. But I don't want to take more of this time. I think that actually we are going to, and I would actually invite to address the spatial data issue in the next discussion round. We will hear more about VLR connection by partners throughout the next and upcoming presentations. But for now, I will hand over to Nagwala Shine, which is the program officer and a star of SDG localization, along with Sukaina in the region. We have really the best of the best. So Nagwa, over to you for the moderation. Thank you.
Thank you, Martina. Thank you for the very generous introduction. So I'll get right to it, because we have a lot to discuss. Save the time for the discussion. The second pillar of any successful VLR is the stakeholder engagement, as was mentioned by several colleagues and presentations in the discussion. And working on a VLR is really a great way to capture the local knowledge, like the example from Tunisia, to give a voice to the local communities and have that reflected possibly in decision-making. Also to create a network of local actors who can continue to engage, maybe even as a strengthened and better informed group after the development of the VLR. So in this session, we will look at several experiences. I will ask the speakers once again to keep to the 5-minute rule, so we have enough time for discussion. And we start with our keynote speaker, Ms. Sukaina Nasrawi, lead of the Sustainable Urban Development Portfolio at UNESCWA. Sukaina, it's great always to have you. It's over to you. Faddali.
Thank you, Najwa, and thank you, Martino, for the nice words. So basically, I'll just start by saying, ladies and gentlemen, localities, colleagues, and partners on this call, it's really an absolute pleasure to be with you today in this technical consultation to share insights on the centrality of stakeholders' engagement in the development process of the voluntary local reviews. As UNESCWA, we've been joining forces with UN Habitat in accelerating the wheel of SDGs localization and follow up and review right from the very first VLR development process in the Arab region, which took place in Amman, Jordan, while ensuring an inclusive and engaging process. So let me start by saying that the success of voluntary local reviews really hinges on the active engagement of all stakeholders. This is the way we see it. And when we talk about engagement, we really refer to a process that starts from informing relevant stakeholders to actually empowering them for decision making. So just imagine a VLR without community feedback. Important needs and experiences could be definitely overlooked, leading to solutions that miss the mark. And conversely, if we engage youth, marginalized communities, businesses, civil society, and relevant stakeholders, this brings different perspectives to the table and enriches the VLR analysis. It identifies blind spots, foster collaboration between the different sectors. So really, stakeholders' engagement isn't just a box to tick. It's the beating heart of a meaningful review process. To be more specific, involving communities in the VLR process is central given the, among many others, the added value at the level of technical and strategic levels, at the level of mobilizing groups that are usually difficult to mobilize, at the level of increasing the ownership of the process of development of the VLR, of course. It has an added value in addressing data gaps through consultations, and we just discussed that, added value commitment of all relevant stakeholders in acting on the recommendations. So this is just in general, but to move to highlighting the how this added value is achieved, particularly in the Arab region, I'd like to say that technically, involving communities enhances the VLR comprehensiveness and accuracy by ensuring that solutions are reflective of diverse community needs. Strategically, it maximizes stakeholders' buy-in and fosters a sense of ownership. So this approach is really crucial for addressing the region's complex development challenges through coordinated efforts across the sectors. But stakeholders' engagement process is really not an easy process. In our efforts to engage the diverse groups in the process in Amman and Agadir, the pioneering Arab cities with VLR, observed really certain key actors. In Amman, for example, key actors like Greater Amman municipalities, UN-affiliated bodies collaborated with a vast array of stakeholders, including national-level public organizations. Stakeholders' engagement is a golden opportunity to address data gaps. Again, in the cases of Amman and Agadir, during the stakeholders' forums and consultations, we were really primarily seeking technical feedback and diverse insights to refine and enhance specific mechanisms within the VLR process. The engagement of the different actors in the data collection and analysis really proved to be critical as it contributed to a more comprehensive and accurate understanding of the various community needs. So the consultation process was not just a formality, but a substantive exercise. The last point I want to highlight is the fact that the engagement of stakeholders does not stop with the finalization of the review itself. It is a cyclical process. It is important to recognize and implement various levels of stakeholders engagement throughout the process. Therefore, multi-level engagements must be encouraged, and this involves not only local level interaction, but also the creation of support of multi-stakeholder alliances and thematic groups that focus on specific SDGs and national stakeholders to ensure that there is a local, national, coherent development dialogue. To conclude, I'd say, and to stay within the limit of 5 minutes, I'd say that stakeholders' engagement should not be just a formality. It builds ownership and accountability, and when people participate in shaping the review, they really become invested in its recommendations and their implementation. And this definitely drives positive change beyond reports and conferences, but rather translating SDGs into tangible actions, leading to leaving no one behind on the path of sustainable urban development. And I'll stop here. Over to you, Najwa.
Thank you very much, Sukaina. It's thank you for highlighting the need for the diversity, for the connection on the multiple levels from local to national, the alliances that can come out of the engagement throughout the VLR process of thematic alliances, and the identification of data gaps, the understanding of the local communities, all its nuances, all the efforts that are being done at the local level that may not be seen beyond the community, and how that can integrate with the national level. So thank you very much for your words. And I think we now have an opportunity to see it in action. We're bringing in examples from the cities. So if I could go to the Chandragiri municipality in Nepal, forgive me if I did not say that correctly. And I would like to invite Ms. Badra Aryal, Section Chief, Disaster Management and Climate, and Dr. Pratap Chatkuli, Consultant and Team Leader for the VLR preparation. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Nawab. Okay, can you please share our presentation slide, or we just, okay. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to share our experience during the preparation of VLR in Chandragiri municipality in Kathmandu, Nepal. So can you move to next slide, please? Okay, just because the same situation was here in Chandragiri before we discuss the different aspects of the data management. And apart from these issues in the data, the VLR process go through not only the data management, data collection, or data accuracy, or etc., but it also aligned to the policy framework in the city first. And the second one is the SDG awareness, and the SDG goal is aware to all the city team, that is the stakeholder in the city, and also it's share the knowledge to the community, up to the community level, because there was different level of consultation in city ward together for the different groups of the city. So the fourth one is during the consultation, the committee they express their requirement to the city government, because before we found that there is some gap between the community and the city government, linking with the SDG goals. Just because in the VLR process, not only evaluate the progress of the SDG goal indicator, but it also stimulate to the city government and connect to the community people to the city government also. So it was a very interactive experience between the community people to foster collaborative environment for knowledge sharing, and what is happening there, what is the progress, what is the quality of the development project which was implementing since long by the city government. Next slide, please. Okay, I just request to my colleagues Badra Aryal to present this slide. Just because we have very limited time, she's the right person to involve in this process. Please, over to you, Badra, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Badra Aryal, Senior Section Officer, Chandragiri Municipality, Nepal. The primary objectives of VLR is to engage with the most vulnerable community groups, aligning with the Leave No One Behind principle. In line with this principle, world-level consultations were conducted aiming for meaningful participation from various vulnerable groups within the community. Women, mothers, groups in certain ethnic community found it challenging to participate in the consultation workshop. You have to provide service to temporary migrant people, factory workers, such as education, healthcare, and social safety needs due to the lacking data and their regular mobility. Over to Partap.
Okay. Okay, thank you, but just because it was the process which was taken by the municipality, because municipality is the permanent government to deliver their services to the community. So next slide, please. Regarding the expectation of the community, what we felt the experience, what we got experience that the community people have so the different type of experience and different type of need regarding the health, education, gender equality, social inclusion, water and sanitation, and urban infrastructure, which was consulted, and they said this is the first time we got this type of opportunity to connect directly to the city government. So so what we understand during this process, that the participant mostly from that, because we choose the most vulnerable people residing area in the city, particularly in the some isolation area, and somehow it is the some ethnic group residing area. So they connect and do access to the people. Just I shared before, not only the development services, but there was some problem even in the social safety net services. Suppose the blanket approach of the government is also lagging there, and different types of services, which is essential health services, like essential education services, where they are a bit disconnect from these services to the delivered by the city government. So next slide, please. So considering the time, because I just summing up this slide, what we have planned, because we are almost finalizing the VLR process. There was several issues, particularly in the data, which is because the city government claimed differently and the survey claimed differently. So how to which data trust, and it is very difficult for us. Anyway, we will organize a half-day sharing workshop in near future to with the executive members of the government, city government, and also we will recommend to the city government that data should be disaggregated, because there is some chunk of data, but there is not any disaggregated data, and several policies has been formulated, but the which policy is linked with which SDG goal, it is also difficult to mention. So like similarly, the we have the plan to organize a national level workshop. That workshop also suggests to the municipal government in the future, especially for how to manage, how to connect to the people, because considering the leave no one behind the principle, and because one important thing is in Nepal, we especially we use Nepali language here, and if we produce a report in English, it would be some difficult to understand the local people, community people. So the result, the discussion, and everything produced from this VLR process, we will translate in Nepali language and disseminate up to the community level, so that in the future the community people will understand, and what was the gap between the city government and community, they can understand. Also, this report will disseminate to the national government and federal, I mean provincial government, because we have the second, because Nepal, in Nepal, the Chandragiri is the second city to conduct this VLR, and it would be very fruitful to all other national local government, because we have the 753 local government. So this would be the effective for other local government. So so this is the just I mentioned because based on the template given from the for this presentation. Thank you so much for giving this time. I finished with this, because if you have presentation participant, if I have any question, I will try my best to respond your query. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. I think you've mentioned a lot of really important points, but I also think it was important when you highlighted that raising awareness of the community itself on SDGs. By doing that, they themselves were able to evaluate city policies and identify their priorities, and also recognize their own role in achieving the SDGs and how important and effective they can be, which I think is a very empowering notion. So yes, there will be a discussion after the presentations, but let's take on a couple of more examples. Let's bring in Palestine, Marwan Durzi, VLR development expert on behalf of the Ramallah municipality in Palestine. Marwan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Najwa. Thank you, everyone, for this important workshop. I will have quick slides just to present the stakeholder engagement from our experience. To start with, we're working with the municipality of Ramallah to prepare the first VLR report in Palestine. The city of Ramallah is located almost in the center of the occupied part of the West Bank part of occupied Palestine. And as you can see quickly from the first picture, you see the empty hills here. These are empty lands, but according to the interim peace agreement, it's controlled by Israel. It should be a space open for urban expansion of the cities. The interim agreement was supposed to end in the year 2000, which is long overdue. That caused heavy urban influence and negative impact on all Palestinian cities, such as inability to expand beyond the identified borders of the city, the urban borders of the city, which caused lots of problems, such as the increase in prices of available land, inability to provide appropriate and affordable housing, and so forth. So if we move on to the next slide, please. We have started basically our overall plan in terms of the stakeholder engagement with the existing national coordination system, which is basically led by the Prime Minister Office. There is an existing system which also works closely and coordinates with national government, local and international stakeholders. And at the same time, as I mentioned in my previous question regarding data, the all statistical data is the primary responsibility of the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics that also provide the specific and official definition of indicators and the ways of defining and approving ways of data collection around all indicators pertaining to SDGs. And all collected data usually are agreed by the national team that I will explain a little bit. And the Palestinian government has issued 2 VNRs reports, which provides a unique opportunity in how to converge between the VLR of the city of Ramallah with the upcoming VNR of the state of Palestine, which unfortunately has been postponed because of the existing war on Gaza. But it will also, the upcoming VNR will also focus on selected SDGs rather than all SDGs. And here there is close coordination with focal points of the VNR on how to utilize the existing VLR of the city of Ramallah in elaborating on the national one. Next slide. Next slide, please. So this is in a nutshell the existing national coordination system. The overall Prime Minister Office is responsible on the national team of SDGs, supported by the UN team of SDGs and the steering committee of the SDG implementation plan. Regarding the national team consists of national task force, 10 of them, and the recent addition of the Association of the Palestinian Local Authorities was an extremely important addition because it brings closer the voice of municipalities in this national coordination structure, and therefore bridging the gap between the national plan of SDGs and the localization reflection of SDGs. Of course, the national team is supported by the National Forum of SDGs and the national team of statistical monitoring system regarding data collection. Next slide, please. So, based on the national coordination team, we're working closely with the Prime Minister Office, the Central Bureau of Statistics, and the relevant ministries and UN agencies. Regarding the policy environment, the role of local authorities, including municipalities, are defined by the local authority law. It stipulates and assigns 27 comprehensive functions of municipalities. And basically, a lot of them cross-cuts with line ministries such as health, education, water, and electricity. In terms of targets, relations, 30 targets, around 18% of the 169 targets can be contributed to the LGUs based on their legal mandate. And here, the LGUs, by definition and by law, is basically constrained by certain targets. We get to the results of stakeholders' feedback in a minute and how that corresponds to this policy environment. And the function can be categorized per the following, basically utilities and infrastructure such as roads, water, electricity, physical planning, public health, social, cultural, administrative and licensing of trade and businesses. According to the law, LGUs are elected and independent bodies with large mandate and financial autonomy. But in practice, the municipalities lack administrative and financial autonomy in managing their daily operations, revenues, expenditure, because of the control by the central government. This is an indication of the extent of decentralization here in Palestine. For Ramallah municipality, it is not responsible of provision of water and electricity, and the stakeholder analysis basically conducted listing main stakeholders and their respected roles. Next slide, please.
One more minute, please, Marwan.
Yes, sure. So this is a list of the ministries and their respective UN agencies. Next slide, please. We identified those in order to contact. The strategic plan, basically, of Ramallah 2023-2026 has been recently developed. So we basically relied on the existing consultation structure in order to capitalize on the momentum and also on the processes that has been already established. Next slide, please. So far, around 25 of the strategic objectives were identified as part of 4 main domains of these consultation committees. Next slide, please. And also, this is in a nutshell the structure of the consultation. The national level I mentioned with PMO, the Prime Minister Office, the Ministry of Local Government. We have another level, sub-level, the governorate level, including nearby adjacent cities and villages, and the city local level with the city council, the management team, and the stakeholders per domain. Next slide, please. The overall steps were 3 mainly. The alignment between national sectoral priorities we have concluded, and we established the linkages. The second step is basically alignment between the strategic priorities of the strategic plan and SDGs. So this has been also accomplished. And now we're in the process of narrowing down of selected SDGs. Next slide, please. Yes, two main national priorities were intersect with the Ramallah municipality priorities, namely improve LGU's responsiveness and foster sustainable development, and three main strategic objectives according to the local government sector strategy. Next slide, please. So basically, we have discussed quickly the first step. We're working on synchronizing with national coordination committees. Already 2 meetings were held. We have agreed on the overall process and alignment between national priorities and the city priorities. And the Central Bureau of Statistics shared data at governorate level, no data at local level. 20 indicators were identified, and we have already mapped them out with already selected priority indicators. Next slide, please. So the second step basically concluded 4 meetings during which subcommittees of the management team linked strategic priorities with respective domains with the priority indicators. Already 12 SDGs were identified and the UMF has been updated. Next slide, please. And now we're in the process of narrowing down.
You have to wrap up. I want to give a chance for the discussion. Thank you.
Sure. Few words. We're narrowing down, and basically the first level of narrowing down, selecting among those 12 SDGs, and based on the results, we will identify the relevant stakeholders in a small-scale consultation, let's say, venues. Next slide, please. And I think this is mostly it. We don't need to discuss challenges. I think we can discuss it with the discussion time. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about
Thank you, Marwan. And I'm really sorry for cutting you off, but you're right. We'll bring all these challenges into the discussion. What I found most interesting is how you've tapped into an existing structure to reach out to the stakeholder network. And I think that's a little bit unique in the case of Palestine. So maybe this is also something that we can elaborate on in the discussion. But for the interest of time, we'll move to our next speaker. I welcome Ms. Layla Youssef, Assistant Director of the Directorate of International Programs and Development from the Greater Irbid Municipality in Jordan. It's a pleasure to have you here. Engineer Layla, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you present my presentation? Okay. Next, please. At the Greater Urban Municipality, we consider that the added value of involving the community in the VLR process is related to the concept of participatory process. In fact, through participatory process, VLR help communities to make decisions and communicate strong narrative while increasing the relevance of a local government as a key actor to deliver results toward the global sustainable goals. And I have to say that just recently, we have launched the multi-stakeholder dialogue for the development of the voluntary local review of Greater Irbid Municipality. Next, please. The question or the subject of that we can reach or have involved with us different group as a stakeholder, it's an important challenge at the level of our municipality. So we believe that effective communication is a very important tool that can and is the foundation to reach out to different group. Through this effective communication, we can have the ability to create and distribute effective information, develop a good relationship, build trust, and listen to the different groups input is essential. The basic communication skills we consider as important for any successful stakeholder engagement project that can include effective writing, ability to combine word and the graphic, public speaking, interpersonal and intercultural skills, and active listening. So we consider that we can have a good communication and visibility plan that can as a strategy contribute to involve more stakeholder or different group in this in the VLR. The second point related if there is a difficult group specific group that we cannot mobilize. The idea is at the level of the municipality, we work to create a culture of trust and collaboration between Greater Urban Municipality and the citizen by developing diverse and attractive participatory process. Next, please. During the stakeholder forum or consultation, we go through a clear process and step that start from inform and consult, involve, collaborate, and empower. The idea of empower is to place final decision-making power in the hand of stakeholder. And we enhance the idea of the importance of the collection of data from all those stakeholders. We consider that with the specific of data, the specific of data that we collect will determine or define the scope of the preparation of a VLR. Urban city data set should be combined with the localization of sustainable development goals. As I have to say that we have very interesting department of GIS with the interesting geodatabase for Greater Urban Municipality, and we start in parallel to build the urban observatory for our city. Next, please. How to keep the engagement with the stakeholder. We have elaborate or defined two ideas for this. Firstly, we talk about the local project committee for the VLR. The role of the VLR committee is to provide specific feedback on the localization of sustainable development goals based on specific local priorities, which help to properly achieve the results of the VLR. We consider that the VLR committee is a powerful tool to advance the localization of sustainable development goals. The second point is VLR and City Lab. At Urban City, we have created City Lab. It's a physical environment created in order to practice collaborating with a different stakeholder to guide the decision-making process while promoting multi-stakeholder dialogue for the development of voluntary local review for Urban City. We consider that the Urban City Lab is a great opportunity for the Greater Urban Municipality to hold activity that involve stakeholders to reflect the participatory approach for the localization of sustainable development goals. And during the different workshop, participants with a different role align and offer diverse idea. Therefore, the decision making can obtain a more interconnected perspective in this physical environment. It's a place where we can structure discussion, have more idea, have a more creation of more workshop to draw clarity that can lead to better scenario design for localization of the sustainable development goals. Next. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Engineer Laila. I think you brought also several important points to the discussion. First of all, the point on effective communication, I think communication is often overlooked, especially when we're working on something so technical. So to emphasize on the importance of communication, how you create information, how you disseminate it, how you communicate it, to build the trust and to actively listen to the community are absolutely core to the whole stakeholder engagement process. I also think it's very innovative to think of the VLR Committee and the VLR City Lab, and I think this could create a continuity to a process of the localization of SDGs. So I congratulate you on that idea. And I would like to now pass the floor on to our respondent, Ms. Sarah Höflich, Learning Coordinator at UCLG, to also hear her reflections on the discussions.
Yes, thank you very much, Nakwa, and also congratulations to the speakers. It was extremely insightful to get your points, and also for us very nice because we just had a joint activity last year in Amman. So much of what you are telling us is very sounding to us. I think the first point is on there is a lot of expectations in when we talk about stakeholder involvement. And I think it is extremely important to be very clear what kind of expectations we deal with. So first, on the stakeholder involvement, who calls the stakeholders and who deals with the expectations? And this also came up, I think, in Nepal is very clear. You said that the stakeholders bring not only their complaints and their claims to the local government, but they also bring a possibility of looking at the impact of projects. So the whole stakeholder process on the VLR engagement becomes very quickly a process of strategic partnership between stakeholders and city governments. But I think it's very important when we look on the data. We have seen also in the panel before that when we talk about formal data, this is usually what government and central government will look at and will hold on and also try to be accountable. But on all the other data that come because of citizen science, because of surveys, because of perceptions, this data go all into the local government consultations through the VLR, or also maybe in the processes. You referred a lot to this. And there, of course, is a problem of maybe expectations. This is important if we do if we don't break the wall between informal and formal data, and also get that national government take up more this perception data, for example, fear, or you refer to public spaces, to the situation, then it will all be always on local government to respond, and without having the means. I think it was very clear in the case of Palestine how difficult it is if you have to respond without having the competences, neither on water, neither on sanitation. So you can imagine on other social services that maybe come up. And the other piece, I think it's very important also to see that stakeholders are, it's very important to cluster. You all said there are diverse stakeholders, there are big diversity, but it's very important to make a difference between public officers, for example, and communities. And then you have, of course, the community has also private sector. Because we come into the relations, not everybody need to be empowered. Many stakeholders already have a lot of power, and they may be not on board. So this is a traditional gap we have been observing, because of course there are years and years of experience on participatory democracy, where this problem is very often that for example, construction sector, urban developers, provider, big enterprises, services, they don't want to engage in this kind of processes. They don't feel attractive, and then later they are not committing to any process. So I think here are many parts that we need maybe to look at and to be careful when we talk about participation as always good, as always positive, as always needed. Of course, we see that the participatory exercise that the VLR are doing is extremely helpful because of the knowledge of the communities, because we need the change in the indicators, and the VLR as a whole. I think they are bringing a lot of opportunities for all municipalities and all planning processes really to change. So here we go very much hand in hand with UN Habitat on the belief that we need, of course, the professional exercise to be more serviced by data, by real cases, and the VLR currently are really increasing very much in quality. But I think also on the issue of power, it's very important to make a very clear picture. Who has power, who needs power, who is disempowered, who has status, who has the right to word, and where is the democratic process behind. So involving municipality of all levels. I think in Irbid and in Amman, we have seen the observatory is really very much owned in the municipality, but still there is a lot of gap because there is it is still speaking between experts and those who know. So that work is not to be underestimated. And I think congratulations for all what you bring, because in a context like in your countries, in the Arab countries where we have very centralized power and maybe many walls to break down, it is very nice how the tools like VLR become so strategic, at least in your contributions, because of course we need them later to be approved in council and to have a continuation and a follow-up of all these processes that are now going on. And I would also make a last point. This is maybe more towards the part of the last sequence, which was very interesting as well on the data. So when we look into the political processes, I think also the case of Palestine, you made a lot of emphasis here that it is not only the occupation, but also the way of how national government is more and more trying to control, to get. So how do we influence the VNR for example, in Nepal, in Jordan, in any country, the VNR it must be representative. So the VLR bring the disaggregated data of one city with hopefully many neighborhoods, and that is also a very high value. But this is not enough for having the VNR really representative. We need many VLRs. And to have many VLRs, we are developing a tool also together with UN Habitat and Martino's team, which we call VSR. So this means voluntary subnational review. And here we look mainly into the need that not all cities will be able to do VLR, which is it's a big success. Hopefully we have one VLR or 2 or 3 per country. But to make a sum, there will be a process. We need to simplify. We need to use all the experiences, the new data, the new way to look at indicators, and to make the urban monitoring framework really operational. And that has to go through a more massive approach. And here the associations of municipalities have a big role to play. So in Nepal, we are doing currently a VSR, Please Connect. And in Palestine, of course, we have a very strong association. You probably know them. And so in order to have a more representative voice and to have all the rurals and all the smaller scales, yeah, it is important. So that's it from my side. And of course, also UCLG, United Cities and Local Government, we are very interested to communicate more on these processes. We also have online offers for all what we are doing, so you can maybe have a look at it. And for example, if you're interested in VSR or connecting to these processes, we have this, of course, all structured in our webs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sarah. I want to thank all the speakers of this session, Ms. Sukaina Nasrawi, Ms. Badra Aryal, Dr. Pratap Chatkuli, Mr. Marwan Durzi, Engineer Leila Yusuf, and Ms. Sarah Höflisch. It's been really great. We didn't leave much time for discussion, unfortunately, but we do have a few minutes. We also have a few questions in the chat box, and I would encourage all participants to also go to the chat and type their thoughts. But for now, we have one postponed question from last session, which is about the geospatial data. And in the context of partnerships and stakeholder engagement, how do you engage the different government agencies that can provide different data that is relevant to the VLR, including the use of geospatial data? So I would like to come back to you with that question and see if any of you have an experience with that, and if you can bring it into the discussion. Okay, Milena Dinik-Brankovic, the floor is yours.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Milena Dinik-Brankovic. I'm from the University of UNECE. I'm also the local consultant for the VLR development for the city of UNECE in Serbia. I had a question rather regarding the stakeholder engagement. Would you like first to discuss the geospatial data? And then I can come back with my question.
No, please go ahead. You have the floor,
Okay.
and then people can have both questions to respond to. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to participate in this workshop. I find it very useful. I would also like to thank all the participants. I really appreciate their efforts, and I have seen a lot of interesting information, which should help us in developing our own VLR. Well, regarding the stakeholder engagement, we have really made significant efforts in including a very diverse range of actors. And these are mostly people that represent institutions at the local level. We have some from the national level. We also included some from the civil sector, academia. We try to include professionals, but as someone pointed out, their interest is usually they're not really that interested in such events. So we are approaching the next stakeholder forum. This is the second one to be held at the beginning of March. And we should probably get aligned with the gaps and the challenges, and maybe discover some other local efforts that I was not aware of while drafting this SDG discussion paper, get a full deep insight into everything that has been done so far. And we should probably prioritize on some of the actions. And I guess that we will get good feedback from the stakeholders on what should be the next steps. This is also related to my segment of the presentation in the third part of this workshop. So I am wondering, we will probably get some input, and how do you how do you put it into concrete action, these projects? Because it is often that good projects are selected and they are prioritized, but somehow they don't get realized because the decision makers make different choices. So even though it might be developed in cooperation with the stakeholders, it might not end up getting done, if you know what I mean. So I'm wondering how to get the most out of that stakeholder meetings to be realistic and to have a real prospect to be realized in the future.
Thank you, Milena. I think that's an extremely important question. Martino, I see your hand is raised. Would you like to come in? Yeah.
I just to add on this point, because Milena has basically built on what Sarah was saying, which I think is absolutely essential, that the need for measuring expectations when we engage stakeholders. How do we work around them, making sure that they are part of a process. Of course, anyone that is participating is interested in bringing their own vision and in getting anything out of a process. So there is measuring expectations and making sure that if there are projects being discussed, prioritized, then they are somehow implemented, because we risk we run the risk of simply disengagement. The next consultation, if I don't see something happen, I'm simply not coming. So that's also why I was asking that question of incentives, because it's sometimes we simply can't make things happen, and that's an important question. And I think that just wanted to highlight also something that Lucia has put on the chat, which I think is quite relevant, is because some VLRs are selective on some SDGs. If there is a prioritization of partners according to the SDGs, that's something interesting to know as well. But just wanted to highlight this point, which is absolutely relevant. Thank you.
Thank you, Martino, and thank you, Lucia, for your question. Thank you, Milena. I don't know if anyone else has thoughts. I have an example to share, I think, from a recent stakeholder engagement workshop held in Irbit, and maybe Reem and engineer Leila are on the call as well and can complement. One of the private sector partners who was present was involved in waste management, and I think that needed to be done in very close coordination, of course, with the local government. And I think one of the points that he expressed was that often in the partnership between the private sector and the local government, he didn't feel it was an equal partnership. And actually, I thought it was very important that the forum gave him the ability to say that to partners in the local government, where he said, we want to be working with you for the interest of the citizen. And they were sitting on the same table addressing how they can do that within the forum. And I thought that engagement at that level in itself was a success. I don't know what will happen out of it, but anyway. Does anyone else have thoughts on this particular point? Milena, did you want to come in and comment?
Well, thank you. Well, we will try to get the priorities selected, the priority projects as much in line as with the people that come from the institutions, so that they can get us the real feedback on what is supposed to be realistic and what is not. But somehow I'm not quite sure about how the decision makers will feel about it once the time for the realization comes. That's my concern. Okay, thank you for your answers.
Thank you. Lucia, did you want to come in?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. This is an interesting discussion. From our experience, what we find, depending on the objective, the VLRs have objectives. And when you combine that with the priorities, the priority focus for the VLRs, it makes you to it is not all stakeholders, and there would be different purposes for awareness. You can talk about all the stakeholders. However, based on what is going to be the focus, one realizes that there would be targeted also interventions when you are dealing with stakeholders. There are instances where you need to bring stakeholders together, maybe at the start. But then as you proceed, there are critical stakeholders that can inform these VLRs based on the work they do, the information they may have, that are not they don't wish to come to all these big groups. Therefore, you have to find specific interventions to bring the collective. If it is private sector, those who are working on water and sanitation, air pollution, name it, they could come together. You know, it depends on the time and also the resources, because it's not one size fits all, and you might not get all the stakeholders to come together. The academics, they have specific information they collect. And when it comes to academics, it's not only urban planners. It also involves those who are dealing with politics and working with young people, women, etc. Based on the whatever. So for us, it is to adopt this general and specific approaches, and sometimes integration. And that means, given the diversity of issues, the themes, it is also how you deal with the different government departments. Because depending on which indicator, you might be dealing with water, you might be dealing with environment more than you are dealing with housing and finance. So how you bring in these different actors is going to matter. But I believe when it is for the well thought through, I think it will work. And as we go along, we will have relevant and really a relevant and efficient and effective way of doing the VLRs. I thought I should share that.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you, Lucia. Marwan, I'll give you the floor, I think, for one last minute, because we are a little bit over time on the session. I apologize, Martino, but Marwan, the floor is yours.
Sure. Thank you. I just wanted to note, maybe in our experience, it was important to build on the strategic plan rather than reinvent the planning process and prioritization. That was an opportunity we saw because people are also overhauled with planning, discussions, and sort of strategizing. So the launching point was on the priorities, existing priorities. But the main question would be how to tell your stories about these strategic priorities rather than selecting priorities from priorities and then what is important from your perspective, because then we will be facing the issue of institutional, let's say, dispute about what is important and what is not. So, but also at the same time keeping in mind and reminding everybody about the overarching issues around the VLR, rather than the indicator of climate change versus the indicator of health and so on. So basically, it's a way of going down to the indicator level, but also staying at the macro level by reminding ourselves of the strategic, let's say, issues encompassing the whole process. Thank you.
Thank you, Marwan. That's a really important point. And yeah, I think it is important to build on the existing frameworks and try to bridge these. I will wrap up this session and hand over to Martino to take you to our next track. Over to you, Martino. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Najwa, for walking us through this session. I'll try just to highlight one other thing that has emerged en passant in between both the context on data and the one on stakeholders that I think that we should bring with us into this third session, which is the issue of competences, of capacities, of really the capacities at the local level of collecting data. We can talk about accessibility, but if we don't have the capacities with, monitoring units, we will talk about it eventually, but also the capacities of communities into, and this is what, again, Sarah was mentioning, how do we structure engagement when eventually communities are not familiar with the topics that we are discussing about. And I actually think that this whole VLR process is amazing, because it's not one silver bullet for everything, but it's a gradual approach to the SDGs, to the it's a very easy and very, I would say, friendly way of improving with the local administration, improving with the stakeholders, improving the data sets. And so the first VLR might be reached here, the second VLR reaches here. So it's a process of strengthening all dimensions of SDGs within municipalities. And with this, the VLR is not only something to strengthen, but it's also something to look forward to. We have, and this is something that our colleagues from Palestine just mentioned, it's extremely important that VLRs are not happening in a vacuum, but that for making them, as efficient, useful, and impactful as possible are linked to ongoing planning processes, are linked to development processes, and that have an objective that goes beyond the reporting. Already, when we talk about data and stakeholders, we understand that the potential of VLRs goes beyond the reporting itself. But then what? So we are trying now to understand the net to answer the question of then what, and we are going to do it into a bit of a different approach by looking at a bit of the different dimensions of the then what. And few of these things are linked to the potential of VNRs of bringing together the national and the local dimension of monitoring and SDG implementation. We will hear from Georgia, but also from Tanzania, about how this has come together. The second dimension is the one of forward-looking, the strategic dimension of VLRs in terms of fostering policy coherence, but also transformative action at the local level. A parenthesis, which is UN Habitat with UCLG and the collaboration of a large group of stakeholders are developing and hopefully launching very soon the action-oriented VLRs methodology. It builds on the regional methodologies, it builds on the global existing ones, and really tries to put a bit the focus on the strategic and action-oriented dimension of the VLR. You see on your screen today's panel. We start with our keynote from Anson Sibanda, Chief of National Strategies and Capacities Building Branch from UNDESA, talking again about capacity building. We pass through Georgia with Natia Tsikaradze, Head of the Strategic Planning and Coordination Unit in the administration of the government of Georgia. We stay in the region and we will hear from the city of Niš and Milena, the VLR development expert, and we will then move into the African continent, first hearing from Evans from UNRCO Tanzania, that has been supporting really and leading the process of SDG localization and VLR development from the UN perspective in the country, and of course UNECE, our colleagues, from the Economic Commission of Africa, with Halal Abdel Latif, Senior Development Officer, Capacity Vili from the Capacity Development Division. This is the panel that we have ahead. I will kindly ask everyone, because we are just a little bit of late with the timing, to keep to your assigned time for speaking so that we can still have a bit of discussion at the end of the panel. Thank you all for being here, and Amson, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Martino, and good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, or good morning, wherever you are. It is a pleasure to join this global workshop, and I wish to thank UN Habitat for inviting the participation of UNDESA as an implementing partner in the development account, as well as the UN Peace and Development Fund projects, in which many of you are also participating. DESA has been pleased to support SDG localization through the preparation of voluntary local reviews through these projects. We have also been working in the Africa and Latin America regions to advance SDG localization through a separate project funded by Italian cooperation and through the regular program of technical cooperation as well. DESA's work in this area is demand-driven, the number of requests that we have received from member states and UN resident coordinators, as well as our development of a program of work in this area, attests to the transformative power of voluntary local reviews and the recognition of their value by actors at all levels. As is the case with voluntary national reviews, voluntary local reviews are most meaningful when they are followed by concrete action to drive SDG implementation. Our current session focuses on precisely this issue and the question of how to make voluntary local reviews strategic and action-oriented, and how to facilitate their use in subsequent sustainable development planning and implementation at the national and subnational levels. So when we are talking about strategic action and next steps, this is, I think, what we would like to share with you. When we approach this topic from a strategic perspectives, I think voluntary local reviews have the potential to raise, first of all, public engagement in the sustainable development goals. Secondly, they inform better policy making. Thirdly, they improve government planning and coordination procedures. Fourth, they enhance budget planning. And fifth, they do reinforce the principles of multi-level governance. And as highlighted by the Global Sustainable Development Report 2023, there is a general lack of progress in reaching the SDGs. The independent group of scientists behind the Global Sustainable Development Report attribute this in part to insufficient understanding and addressing of interactions between goals and targets, and underline that implementation of the 2030 Agenda requires a systemic approach focusing on interlinkages between goals and targets. Conducting voluntary local reviews therefore holds potential to addressing some of these challenges, especially when it comes to improving our understanding of the interlinkages between the goals and targets at the subnational level. It is therefore encouraging that local governments such as the city of Melbourne in Australia and Mexico in municipality in Guatemala, for example, identified their first voluntary local reviews as baselines for ongoing monitoring and have committed to conducting periodic reviews to inform and strengthen development policies and planning. In other cases, voluntary local reviews highlighted actions that governments have taken to align their procedures and timelines to prioritize the SDGs. Sao Paulo in Brazil created a municipal commission for sustainable development Agenda 2030, composed of public authorities and civil society, with thematic chambers supporting specific areas of sustainable development. Dusseldorf in Germany, Montevideo in Uruguay, and Sachi in Costa Rica also reported applying new structures or planning timelines to better align strategies to the SDGs. Local and regional governments have also utilized voluntary local reviews and voluntary national reviews to report alignment of their budget processes with the SDGs. This, of course, includes Belo Horizonte in Brazil, Busia County in Kenya, Cascais in Portugal, that have developed transparent tools for monitoring allocation of government budgets to each sustainable development goal. Amman in Jordan, Barcelona, and other cities are implementing sustainable procurement policies to prioritize sustainable matters in all public purchases. And following the 2023 SDG Summit, strategic actions that have catalytic and multiplier effects across the SDGs at both the national and subnational levels include 6 key transitions, namely food systems, energy access and affordability, digital connectivity, education, jobs and social protection, climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. Rooted in the SDGs, these entry points or transitions represent an organizing framework to help spotlight pathways to accelerate SDG progress at all levels. These 6 key transitions can help guide the implementation, reporting, monitoring, and evaluation of the SDGs at the local and regional levels as well. Our department, DESA, in partnership with UN Habitat, UNECE, and UCLG, is additionally implementing a guidance portal for enhanced voluntary local reviews to assist local governments and organizations interested in pursuing a voluntary local review. The portal provides a suite of guidance documents and training materials designed to enhance the content and process of voluntary local reviews for sustainable, green, and resilient transition. The portal also provides guidance on strengthening voluntary local reviews effectiveness by linking national and local planning, as well as by informing the means of implementation, supporting technological development and transfer, improving local trade and market access, and supporting local SDG progress indicators and data. In conclusion, we at UNDESA, we are also thinking about strategic actions and next steps in relation to voluntary local reviews that will be informed by our ongoing capacity building support to various countries on SDG localization and the preparation of voluntary local reviews. In the coming months, working across DESA divisions, and together we are with our partners, UN Habitat, UNDP, UCLG, United Nations Regional Commissions, and other UN entities, we will coordinate a series of interagency policy briefs offering analysis and recommendations on a range of topics, including financing SDG localization, data, monitoring and reporting, and on voluntary local and subnational reviews. These publications, we hope, will further delve into the questions before us today. And with those few words, I look forward to hearing what the other panelists will share with us. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, dear Amson, and specifically thanks for mentioning both the policy briefs that I think will pave and define some of our interagency and common ground on SDG localization and the different dimensions, but also for mentioning the transitions. As you know, the UN has approved the transitions, or let's say the UN and its system and member states. The transitions are at the core of what the world will do to push development and sustainable development forward in the coming years. So having this mapped also in our support to VLRs and how this can come a tool from the bottom up to advance on the transitions is absolutely essential, and was actually one of the points of discussion of last week's retreat during the local 2030 coalitions retreat in Bilbao, as USG, the Office of the Secretary General, was insisting a lot on this dimension. Thank you a lot, Amson, for your words. Please feel free to remain connected and take any questions that might arise for you. But I will now give the floor to our first presenter, Ms. Natia Tsikaradze, Head of the Strategic Planning and Coordination Unit within the Government of Georgia. Natia, over to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Martina. First of all, I would like to thank you for organizing such an interesting event, and it's a pleasure to be the part of this discussion. Today we're talking on a very important topic, which considers the importance of the VLR and what is its role in strategic planning. And I would like to highlight the key role of the voluntary national, voluntary local review in monitoring process, as well as in strategic planning at city or regional level. And the process of SDG localization that starts with the voluntary local review allows local authorities to identify their own priorities, and when it combines a careful analysis of indicators with a participatory process that involves citizens and stakeholders on the local level to analyze of existing policies as a basis for planning and policy design. It also becomes a strategic planning tool for local governments. As you might already know, Georgia started this localization process in 2021. We are a bit late because of the COVID pandemic, because we were planning to start this process by the end of 2019. We started this process, but because of this global pandemic situation, so we postponed. And I would say that this localization process in Georgia is very successful, developed. So we already covered half of the municipalities of the country, and we plan to end this process to cover all the municipalities by the end of 2025. And we started to develop a kind of foundation for the next years to start very active developing of the VLRs in each municipalities, and we're developing the strategic framework documents for all municipalities to define the indicators, which is the most important part while developing the VLR. Because the benefits of VLR for local context is to help communities and local decision makers to focus on the areas that require more support and future funding, of course. And it translates the SDGs into concrete social solutions and to provide a global language to local issues. So we have this process that we started in 2015 on the national level, but it's important to include all the municipalities in this direction. It offers public administration a cognitive tool to facilitate dialogue, and it involves citizenship and civil society in a transparent and participatory way, and constitute a strategic point for process monitoring local action. Because while we started this localization process and developing the main strategic framework, so we are having a very active consultation with public and with stakeholders. And before this document will be approved by the local government, it is shared with all the stakeholders, and it's also published on public, and it's publicly available for anyone that are interested to be involved in the process. And I would say that this process is very much oriented on transparency and inclusiveness. And so this process is very important because we're making the analysis of indicators, and having solid, up-to-date and detailed information based at local level is the first step towards a more informative VLR. And it's important that the design and selection of indicators combines the needs to capture territorial specificities with the alignment of key indicators at local level that have national and supranational measuring frameworks. So for us, it's very important to have very locally tailored indicator framework, because so we are looking at various indicator bases that are developed on global level. But for us, the most important part is to have the indicator framework that are tailored on a very specific and on a very local level. We are sure that we have data to track the progress and to measure the progress. And moreover, it's important that the information base contains not only qualitative data, but also qualitative data that can be collected through participatory methods and stakeholder engagement process. And involving and empowering local communities through the elaboration of VLRs can contribute to more proactive, aware and systemic participation to SDG process. And furthermore, it broadens the information base, bringing people and as well as including vulnerable groups closer to decision-making process, because we always hear from vulnerable groups that they are not part of the process of decision making. And through this process, we are very much focused on that group to be involved in the process in order to reinforce a collective vision, in order to promote sustainable development on local level. And VLR can foster alignment between existing development plans and strategies, thereby strengthening the interaction of resources, skills, and knowledge between levels, like between municipalities and regional levels, or even national and global levels. And this process also supports the strategic planning. And VLR and the process of VLR developing can also help in identifying areas where action is needed, and to establish clear future priorities that can orient strategic planning, as well as it also very important for budget development when we're talking about the SDG localization. And while we are working with municipalities, we are trying to be in line with the budget developing process to be sure that the indicators that are mentioned in our matrix will be considered while we are planning the budget of the municipalities, because so as I already mentioned, so we created this framework document. We have all the local indicators, and this is kind of strategic framework document for each municipalities in order to define the future priorities of the local level. And they're always saying that this is the documents that we always want is to have in order to plan our strategic documents, to define the goals and objectives for the future steps. And also the activities also are in line with this framework document. And it's very important for the municipalities and for the local level to be supported from the national level, even in experience sharing, and we have very close cooperation with them. So we already have this framework document in half of the municipalities of Georgia, and from this year we are already starting the monitoring of implementation and monitoring of the achieving of these indicators. And we also plan to identify the gaps and the challenges in achieving these concrete targets, values of the indicators, in order to plan the future steps that will foster and support the achievement the concrete target indicators that were defined by 2030.
Nadia, I need to ask you to please conclude so that we can give.
Yeah, I'm wrapping up. Just final words. And yeah, this is the Georgian experience, and I think that it might be useful and interesting best practices for other countries. And if there is any questions or comments, so I would be very happy to hear about it. Thank you.
Nadia, and thanks a lot. And I think it's an incredible example of how, with the support of the national level, municipalities are able to not only create a framework, but based on that agreed framework across spheres of government, define strategies. And for me, it's actually extremely important, the issue of budgeting. Where do we put our budgets? How do we budget for interventions? And hence, the VLR process and the framework of analysis provided by a VLR is actually some of the basis, and we have also Buenos Aires Connected that have done large experiences on budgeting, VLRs being used on many different levels. And I think the issue of budgeting and inclusion, integration of VLRs within the budgeting process at the local level is very essential. Maybe it's something for us to reflect during our discussion. Thanks a lot, Nacia. And for everyone, please feel free to put your questions in the chat. We move to Serbia, and I will give the floor to Milena Dinic-Brankovic, which is the development expert that is leading the development of the VLR of the city of Niš in Serbia. Niš is becoming surely a champion nationally, but also regionally. And but I don't want to spoil too much. Please, Milena, the floor is yours. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. I have tried to share my presentation. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I can change it. You don't have to. Good afternoon, everyone, once again. Before we reflect on the strategic action of the VLR, which seems to be the most challenging part of this VLR and the next steps track, I would first like to look back quickly on the process and where it is now. Well, this is the first VLR in Serbia and the third one in the region, so we are not very experienced with the VLR, but we do have the voluntary national review from 2019. And we initiated the process in August 23. We completed all the steps until today. We have partly conceptualized the SDG discussion paper, which is to be presented at the stakeholders forum at the beginning of March within a co-creative process, which will, I hope, advance the VLR towards the finalization, which is scheduled for May 24. How can we make this VLR of Niš strategic, action-oriented, and useful? Well, since we have not launched the VLR yet, I can only speak about the prospects, and few ideas come to mind. The first one would, of course, have to be to inform all of the local bodies of the VLR and its findings. I think that it would be crucial to connect decision-making and resource allocation with the VLR findings, but also to implement some of the conclusions from the VLR into relevant local policies and programs. Also, we would like to prioritize some of the recommendations that were identified in the VLR based on their feasibility and based on their potential impact. But I would suggest addressing the most critical issues first, because we know that resources are always limited and they're always an issue. So in order to effectively exploit the existing resources, this would be the proper way to go to address the most critical issues first. VLR can be used as guiding document in devising new plans, strategic plans for the city of Niš. And we have the spatial plan and the general urban plan already initiated for the time horizon of 10 years. But it can also be used to enhance the standing plan, which is the development plan of the city of Niš. It has a time horizon until 2027. And this is actually a very comprehensive plan with a very comprehensive set of measures and indicators, which unfortunately are not being monitored at all. But my idea would be to align the VLR priorities with the plan's development directions, which are already predefined, and with some of the priority goals, and then review the responsibilities and timelines and resources that have been defined in the development plan of Niš, but most importantly, to also establish monitoring and evaluation towards the advancement of the goals. The goals have already been outlined in the plan and in the VLR, and also to perform regular evaluation of key performance indicators. How to select the most urgent challenges? Well, of course, it would be review existing data, plans, and reports, which has already been done, engaging a diverse range of stakeholders, identifying some of the local gaps and challenges in order to suit the VLR to local needs and opportunities, to also acknowledge local efforts, and finally rank the challenges based on their severity and urgency. When it comes to the contribution of the VLR of Niš, well, I see that it will mostly contribute the planning process, particularly to the information base, because, well, in Serbia, we do have an obligation to have an information base before the planning process begins, but it is not somehow standardized, and it is rather arbitrary. Planners themselves decide what documents are necessary and what are not, and therefore the VLR can enhance the transition of planning towards evidence-based planning, which would be the overall idea, and also change the local perspective on collecting information, on sharing information, and also on providing information and making it publicly available and easily accessible. And also promote evidence-based planning. I think that it would probably provide better results. Also have the VLR will also contribute to projects and budgeting, and probably showcase niche's development potential and investment opportunities to potential investors. Well, we haven't launched the VLR yet and haven't had a second meeting, but one of the priorities, in my opinion, should definitely be implementation of renewable energy projects, and there are some advances in that direction with the installment of small solar power plants. And I think that this trend should be continued, but also to enhance also projects that would involve energy from biomass. This is the greatest resource in niche area. This would also bring additional environmental benefits, which we are all aware of. And finally, in regard to linking the VLR process of niche with the national level, I would have to say that the most important accomplishment was definitely achieved at the beginning of the VLR process. It was that we have established a monitoring department of the city of Niš, who is to support the monitoring progress on the SDG implementation at the local level, but also connect local and national reporting systems in the future. We hope to have raised awareness among local authorities about the importance of the SDGs and strengthen the cooperation between the institution. I have to say that we had a particularly good cooperation with the Statistical Office of the Republic of Serbia during the development of this VLR. Some partnerships have been built between various stakeholders, and also the VLR explores the link between the national and the local level, and also between the voluntary local review and voluntary national review, and see how our priorities aligned in both documents. And we are hoping that this will help with the future reporting. Regarding the scaling up, this is a pioneering VLR in Serbia, so we are hoping that it will be something to look up to by other cities. They can use the applied methodology, the set of indicators, they can refer to literature and sources used. And also this will help the overall conducting of VLRs across Serbian municipality. For this, we have the support of the Ministry of Construction, Transport and Infrastructure and the Agency for Spatial Planning and Urbanism. Well, that is briefly what
Milena, thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
And back to the timeline.
Definitely, and I think that the scale up issue is something also that the colleagues of UNESCWA was mentioning before in the first session, and the point we were talking about budgeting in the context of Milena's presentation. You have mentioned about investments. So how can the VLR be an instrument to actually attract investments, external investments towards territories? We are having as UN Habitat corporate discussions with development banks at different levels and in different regions. And honestly, most of the times we are talking different languages. Investors, development banks, financial banks, and the, let's say, local dimension of development are completely disconnected. And that's something that through the VLR, I think that we have the chance to foster, specifically by fostering aggregation of analysis, aggregation of municipalities, and make sure that investments are going to scale. This is for us, again, to reflect on. But thanks again, Milena, for your presentation. And again, please feel free. I see that Sarah has already put a question in the chat for you. And with this, I will pass the floor to Evan Siangiga. I'm sorry, Evans, our senior economist from the UN Resident Coordinator Office in Tanzania, that has really been the champion within the UN system in Tanzania for lifting this VLR process. Thank you again, Evans, and over to you.
Thank you, Martino, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, colleagues. I understand that we have people from almost all the continents in different time zones. It's evening here. So as Martino has introduced me, I was responsible for coordination of the voluntary national review and on the part of the UN system, but also supported the government. I was part of the government task force for VNR, the second VNR last year, which also incorporated the aspects of the voluntary local review for Mwanza City. Maybe I sort of start by highlighting that Mwanza City is the capital of Mwanza region, and it's one of the region is one of the 31 regions of Tanzania. It's in the northern part of Tanzania, and the region has the city itself is one of the 185 local authorities in the country. The voluntary local review, which was conducted in Mwanza City last year with very close technical and financial support from Habitat and Finland, and also from the various stakeholders, was the first voluntary local review to be conducted in Tanzania. It was conducted along with the second voluntary national review, which was presented to a high-level political forum in New York in July last year. Maybe I should just go straight to what happened after the report. Immediately after the finalization of the voluntary local review for Mwanza, the process of voluntary national review was still going on. So the findings of voluntary national review for Mwanza played a very, very important role in informing the voluntary national review, but by having a lens of assessing how SDGs are implemented and are monitored at a local level. Within the time frame, in the work plan, which the task force had a national review, there was an aspect of having feedback from local authorities, but it was not easy to have thorough consultations across all the 185 local authorities. The forum was organized with few representatives, but Mwanza Insight gave an in-depth understanding of what's really happening at the local level. So that was the first contribution to the voluntary national review. The second was after the presentation at high-level political forum, there was a side event on SDG localization in which Mwanza findings were shared globally with some interested stakeholders, and from that, various experiences were shared and various perspectives were also shared. After the presentation of both voluntary local review and voluntary national review, back to the country, the Planning Commission organized the first feedback event or a workshop in which included all the planning officers from all the land ministries, but it also included various stakeholders to look at how the findings of both voluntary local review from Mwanza and the findings of voluntary national review can be incorporated into the national plans, and how can the challenges which were highlighted, or lessons which are highlighted in the process can be addressed holistically or structurally by looking at within the existing government systems, but also in collaboration with various stakeholders. From the meeting, one of the notable actions which are done is the role of the President's Office, regional authorities, and local governments in coordinating, in vertical coordination between the line ministries and the local government authorities. That's this is a ministry which is responsible for coordinating all the local authorities, and for that, it was agreed that in the planning cycles, which now the process is going on, the local authorities will ensure that we have SDG aligned budgets, but also for specific challenges which emanated from voluntary local review from Mwanza and some other areas at the ministry's level. Specific actions can also be incorporated in the budget. Some high-level dialogues have also commenced at that level, spearheaded by the Planning Commission and national and the presidents of the regional authorities and local government, but also collaboration with the United Systems here and different partners. A specific request came to the United Nations to support taking this step and lessons from Mwanza a step ahead. The initial request was to look at the guidelines for monitoring implementation of SDGs at local level and and also look at how the government can assess periodically all these initiatives. So the initial discussions have been going on a joint program on SDG localization in close collaboration with and discussions with UN Habitat, RCO, and already currently we are in the process of thinking of carrying these initiatives to see how the program can support the government in and all other stakeholders in SDG localization initiatives. Various forums and interests have been expressed at different levels. Several presentations, discussions have been done within the UN system, including the program coordination group, which comprises of the deputy heads of agencies, and also one presentation also with the colleagues from here that have been done at Development Partners Group. So all this, the agreement is that the initiative can be replicated, and there's some good lessons which can inform how we can strengthen the implementation of SDGs and monitoring of SDGs at the local levels in the country. Thank you.
Evans, thanks a lot for the very informative presentation, and probably something that we have not explored and it would be worth exploring is the connection from the local to global. You have mentioned how the VLR of Mwanza has actually brought the government of Tanzania, the different delegations, first at the UN Habitat Assembly in Nairobi, then at PF, then at the SDG Summit, where localization and the VLR was at the center of the discussion. Hence, not only through the VLR process we are able to enhance the dialogue on VNRs and national monitoring, but this is then brought within the center of I would say, decision and political decision-making at the UN in New York, in Geneva, where member states are gathering and localization is more and more at the center. Thanks for underlying the potential of replicability. This is something that was emerging also from Nish's presentation, from Milena's presentation, saying how one pioneer actually has, we have seen once one VLR is done, then the ball is rolling. And there is not only interest by the national government, but many other municipalities are actually starting to look at it, following the example of one. And thanks a lot for your guidance role as within the resident coordinator office in hand-holding the government and make sure that these experiences are then capitalized. And please pass our regards to the Prime Minister's office and anyone that is really taking this forward from the national and local level. Thank you, Evans. And we have our last speaker, respondent, Halal Abdellatif, Senior Development Officer of the Capacity Development Division from the United Nations Economic Commission from Africa. I'm not sure. I cannot see you, Halal. I'm not sure if you have your camera on or if it's my.
Thank you, Martino. Thank you, Martino. I have a very poor connection. I am limiting my audio, not the video. Yeah, it's a connectivity problem. Thank you over to you. Thank you, Martino. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. I just thank you for inviting me. So I will be taking my 5 minutes. I'm not bringing any major new findings, but I will highlight maybe 4 or 5 major uptakes of the whole process from what I hear and from my reading on Africa reports and when participating on the VLRs. Number one is really the issue of securing political commitment and leadership to continue doing the VLR or including or mainstreaming VLR as well as VNR. This commitment and support from local is very important. This is including buy-in from mayors, council members, and other decision makers who can provide the necessary resource and support for conducting the review. That's number one. Number two is the quality of engagement and with local communities. In the African context, the quality of engagement really is dependent on the regime type. I know I heard Sarah saying about mentioning about the quality, the type of regime they have in the Arab world. Yeah, the same in Africa. When you have a dominant party system, the diversity and inclusivity who comes in, who participate, is very skewed, is very biased or partisan. So engaging and soliciting input from the local consultation, involving them data collection analysis is critical. Everybody has repeated, this is very important. So you're getting what you call field data when you talk to the community engagement, engage with the community. Then this will help us ensure that the review reflects the priorities and the perspective of local communities that are being assessed. 3, integrating the review into existing planning process, including inform the CCA and more other different UN agencies planning and goal setting. So integrating this review in the national plan is very important within the African context. So far, we have over 17 review has been done, and I read most of them, and they seem to be very weak between the nexus between the review results and nexus to national plan. That's just my comment. Then another point is actual leveraging technology and innovations. We need to harness the power of technology innovation to streamline data collection, analysis, and the reporting process, including geospatial and using different platform visualization, etc. This can include using like digital platform, data visualization, and remote sensing technologies to gather and analyze data more efficiently. Then issue of advocating for policy support. To advocate for policy support at the national international level, to encourage, incentivize the conducting of voluntary local reviews. One of this event, this framework that this event that we're involved in it now is one of the is the manifestation of such a incentivized process. So this can include funding, technical assistance, and recognition, cities and registers that engage in the review process. In general, in conclusion, by implementing this strategic action that I mentioned above, local governments can accelerate the conducting of voluntary local reviews, leading to more effective monitoring and evaluation of progress towards sustainable development goals. Thank you. This is over, Martino.
Thanks a lot, Dalal, for these points. Very important, and specifically the connection, thinking about the presentations, the connections to planning and the advocacy and the advocating for policy support. 2 key points that you have highlighted in your intervention, and I would like to build on this as. By saying that for me, really, what we have seen today is that the beauty of and the potential of VLRs spans into many different dimensions, from strengthening data environments, enhancing stakeholders, and their connection into inspiring initiatives, actions, plannings, and policies. Clearly, there are some building blocks for this to happen, as an action-oriented and transformative VLR needs to be built on foundations. Those foundations are linked to what Halal was just mentioning, the political engagement, but also the financing support. We need resources eventually to do anything, but we also need I would say creativity and forward thinking of the people that are involved into the VLR process. It's not easy. Comprehensiveness, coordination, and alignment is very, very, very complicated actually to happen. I would want basically our workshops closes now, but I think that we can take just a bit or few minutes if you are available. If you need to jump off, please feel free. I would like just to open the floor if there are specific questions, interventions, reflections that any of you participants would like to share at this point in time. If not, no worries. I think it's totally fine. And we have been talking a lot, let me just then take 1 minute to say one thing. I will not try to wrap up. Lucia, yes, over to you, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad I've been part of this, and thank you for organizing this, Martino, and the team behind it. I'm listening and I'm listening and I'm listening and I've been attentive for most of the speakers. And the data track, stakeholder engagement, and now this last track. And what is running in my mind, I have put in the chat that it is strategic to align, based on what I have heard, it is strategic to align VLR priorities with national development plans, because that comes with also the political support and everything. But we also know that there are a number of urban targets and indicators that are not prioritized within the national development plans. For us, based on the countries we have engaged with in detail, that comes out clear. So the question is then, what do we do? What is emerging from these VLRs? You know, if the VLRs are leading to better strategic planning, better budgeting, and incorporation, and maybe to lead to better investments, then there needs to be that balancing act, because not all the priorities, urban priorities, are finding themselves in the national development plans. Then when we look back from where we started, I think there has to be that constant kind of evaluation and really being able to know, when you look at all the VLRs that have been done from then 2018 to now, what kind of SDG goals, targets, and indicators have been prioritized? Because the prioritization, I'm much aware of the prioritization of priorities at the local level has to bear in mind the politics. So it is the political angle which is influencing the social and the economic and vice versa. So what do we learn? And therefore, what is it that we need to add as advocates, as advisors, into this VLR process? What do we need to bear in mind, given the range of different targets and indicators? It might not be possible to deal with every indicator at every level or whatever, but for most, they do matter to the communities and the people on the ground. So it is broader questions that require to be taken into account. And what it means that you move from the individual, you start with the specific voluntary reports to the aggregates in the regions at the national level and maybe regional, because they will provide specific lessons that can be learned and that can be useful in terms of strategic planning, more so when we are heading to the Summit of the Future and any other planning that is going to come up in the run-up to 2030.
Thanks a lot, Lucia. Thank you very much and I think that you've mentioned the Summit of the Future, and there is a long way forward. Just a point on the events, which I think we have all in our agendas here, which is the World Urban Forum, in Egypt, very important meeting. It's about local action, and we really hope that the VLRs that are being discussed here today, participants will be able to meet in that global fora. Sukaina, over to you.
Yes, Martina, thank you so much, and I'll be very quick. First, thank you so much for this workshop. The discussion was really very enriching. I just want to highlight again the point that was mentioned in terms of the importance that localization is getting, and that the VLR does not only enhance the national-local dialogue, but rather through our experience, particularly with Amman in Jordan, with the first VLR, that we've also, of course, partnered to support Greater Amman municipality to develop. We've seen how the development of the VLR process basically led to enhancing national local development dialogue, but also the regional and the global, because throughout the process, the local authority basically strengthened its relationship with with different stakeholders at the local level, but also with national relevant stakeholders. It also, through the regional fora for sustainable development, enhanced partnership and involved other relevant entities, and also through the global forums, including the World Urban Forum, since they've got the opportunity to present, and the HLPF in 2022 and 2023. So I just wanted again to highlight how working on voluntary local reviews really opens the horizons for the local authority to local, national, regional, and global stakeholders / partnerships that could foster the development wheel. I just wanted to highlight this, and over to you, Martina.
And I think you touched also on one important point, Sukaina, which, at least in my experience, some of the most exciting exchanges, not necessarily for me, but for the partners, were the regional ones. The excitement of learning from cities, from the neighboring country, understanding the same challenges, but also how that specific neighboring countries in the country is facing some of the challenging on institutional localization, and more into detail on the development of DLR, has been absolutely essential. And that's why the role of the commissions in all of these discussions and in all of this support is central. And definitely, I think that we are getting into 2 months that will be open with the regional forum on sustainable development in Asia Pacific, and will be closed at the end of April with the regional forum on sustainable development in Africa, and we will pass through Lebanon, we will pass through our colleagues in Latin America, and of course Geneva. So these are exceptionally important meetings that then will lead us to the Summit of the Future and HLPF within the next few months, where VLR are hopefully going to be a bit in the center of the discussion. Colleagues, being mindful of the time, I will not wrap up on everything that has been said, but I was sending messages to the teams. I think that we have launched a series without knowing that we have launched a series of discussions, but this deserves a bit more of these moments, a bit more of moments. Maybe we will reflect a bit on the format, we will reflect a bit on the participation, on the invitees, on how do we want to structure this, but there is at this point a wealth of knowledge, practices, and thanks a lot to everyone that is being connected from the city level, national level, from the countries, and that are leading this process and putting everything into practice. So we are learning every day from you, and what we try to do here is to convene and to facilitate exchanges. We will continue doing so, and maybe thinking into a more regular meetings, or at least now on the lead up to the important meetings and events that were just mentioned. Just pin your agenda for those events. You will receive eventually a few other invitations from our side as we continue online meetings and events organization. And I Thank you all again for your availability. To the co-organizing partners, to all the speakers. I know that some of you have been waking up very early, others have gone, it's night, but in general for staying with this group for 3 hours. And really thanks again for the inspiring work. Exchanges will continue. Thank you very much again, colleagues.
Thank you, Martino.
Thank you, Martino, for organizing. Thank you, colleagues. It's great to see everyone.